Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes got off to a strong start at home with impressive wins against the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia Flyers. Next up, the long State Fair road trip. And the Canes started well with a strong 5-1 win over the Sharks, despite missing Jacob Slavin, who didn't begin the road trip with the Canes. Canes have dominated the games thus far and have outscored the opposition 15-7. With the season now underway, what do we think of the Carolina Hurricanes in these early days? What areas are still a work in progress? And with 5 games of the long road trip left, what do we want to see from this year's Canes? Joining me as always to talk about this and more, Erin Manning, Katie Bartlett. Ladies.
Hello.
Okay, so great road trip so far. And we'll take it. And of course, the game against the Sharks was a must win because we know that as the road trip goes on, this is going to be some heavy lifting for the Canes. So particularly wondering how Jacob Slavin is going to surface at some point or what's going to happen with him. The Canes have definitely got their work cut out for them. And talking about that, I thought we'd kick it off and maybe take a look at the decor. Slavin and Walker put together to start the season. I thought they looked pretty good, but with Slavin out, Mike Reilly is in the lineup, and he played a pretty strong game, I thought, against the Sharks. He had 5 shots. He was a +1. He played over 18 minutes. Did some good work on the PK. So, are we going to see anything in terms of concerns with Slavin out, or what are we thinking about that defensive pairing and the decor? Erin?
I like that both of the pairings with Walker. I liked him with Slavin. I think that we all thought that maybe he needed to get just a little bit more. Walker did, and then we saw a lot of that last night. So again, early in the season, you're going to see these guys step up as the opportunities grow and as they get more comfortable playing with each other. So I think that when Slavin and Walker are really comfortable playing with each other, they're going to be a great first pairing. Unfortunately, because of the Slavin injury situation, and we don't have a lot of details about that yet, I think that that's going to be something that unfolds, and we'll find out what's going on a little further into the road trip. But you never know when your 7th defenseman has to come in, and especially if you're going to draw him in and kind of give him those kind of minutes, like you said, Tom, and put him up there with Sean Walker. I thought he was outstanding last night. He was very noticeable, not just with that tremendous flip pass to Robinson for that goal. That was just fantastic. But also just being very steady in his own end. He didn't seem to be having any issues with any of that. He brings a little bit of physicality, I thought. Some nice touch there, everything you want to see. And there was a lot of praise on the broadcast from Trip Chasey about what a great veteran player he is and everything like that. So, I think that this is one of those instances where you bring in a guy who, certainly nobody can replace Jacob Slavin, nobody, that the Canes could ever acquire. So for the time being, though, and especially this early in the season with teams just starting to kind of feel each other out and have those matchups and competition, he's doing great. First game, it's going to be an ongoing process, but hopefully Jacob Slavin will be back soon enough that, we won't have to have any second guesses or second questions.
Well, and I think one of the guys that certainly has stepped up and is off to a great start this year is K'Andre Miller. He's averaging over 22 minutes a game. This is really something. And I think he's playing well. Katie, thoughts on K'Andre Miller?
Well, especially under the circumstances of Slavin being limited, he's stepped up and really taken that mantle, which is very impressive for somebody new to the team. Obviously, love his size for his reach. He has a very Slavin-esque stick work when it comes to how he positions himself. And from puck drop in the Devils game, you noticed his reach. You noticed him tapping pucks away from players and working the angles to keep them from being able to get shots off or to get at least something dangerous produced. So he's been very impressive. And of course we have the 2 goals. It's always the bright, shiny stats that people notice the most, but it was very cool to see him produce immediately as he joined the team. And I think as he settles into himself and settles into the system, he's going to really flourish. There's so many comparisons that have been made in many different outlets to him being perhaps like Brady Shea was when he came over from the Rangers, but perhaps better because he's got the longer term deal and he's younger and he has a little bit more size and so on. So been thrilled with him and thrilled with his ability to step up and lead the D-corps in Slavin's absence.
Well, when you watch Miller play, what is it that really impresses you about the way he plays, Katie?
I think just his positioning is what has impressed me the most. Is he seems to really understand and see the ice so well. He knows where to cut off angles, when to step up and deny zone entries with his gap control, when to angle himself back a little bit to prevent a break past him. I mean, it hasn't been perfect, but it's been really good. And as the season goes along, I think he'll tighten that up even better and really be a dominant force on the blue line for the team.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things about K'Andre Miller that as soon as you watch him, it just jumps out at you is his wonderful skating. I mean, he's smooth as silk up there. It's almost effortless. And so, it's kind of interesting when you've got Miller and you've got Chatfield out there. These are 2 guys that can really fly, and boy, it's tough for teams to get much space against those guys. So I'm with you. I think Miller's off to a great start. He's like some of the other new guys out there. We've got 3 right now who are relative newcomers to the Canes, if you count Mike Reilly out there, all trying to figure out the system. And we've talked a lot about this in the past where, the new defense guys, they take a little while to get their mojo. And the fact that these guys have certainly had an impact early on, I think is a testament to Eric Tulsky and his ability to get people that he thinks really fit the system. And of course, the players themselves. So great start. Now, let's talk about the pair that's really making noise, I think, back on the blue. And I'm talking about Shane Gostisbehere and his partner, Alex Nikishin. Now, these guys are combined plus 12 right now, let alone anything else they've done on the ice. They have been very, very strong on the defensive side. Gostisbehere leads the NHL with a +7. Now, that's something you probably wouldn't say at the start of the season, that Ghost would be leading in the plus-minus at some point. He is right now. And, of course, he scored a beautiful goal in that game last night as well. And, of course, Alex Nikishin, what can we say about him? He's doing it all. Erin, what are your thoughts on those 2 guys?
Well, they've been so much fun to watch, first of all. I think that pairing is, sure, there were some conversations I know we had over the summer about not wanting Nikishin to be on the 3rd pair. I don't think he's going to be there forever. But right now, I think Shane Gostisbehere is an excellent partner to help him get acclimated to the system. And one of the things we didn't even mention here is that Ghost is playing on his offside. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do for a defenseman, but he's been absolutely seamless with it. There's been no issues whatsoever there. So he's a testament to his ability to be adaptable because, that is not a skill that every defenseman in the NHL has, to be able to play on their opposite side. For Nikishin, I think that, it's going to be a little time before he fully adapts to the NHL game because you got to do that. It's part of the process. But we've seen some flashes of absolute brilliance already, and that's without him, having actually scored a goal yet. He came very close to scoring a goal last night. Yeah. But luckily, that rebound was available. So he's going to get one. It's a matter of time, before that first goal hits. So it's probably coming anytime in the next few games, I think. But beyond his offense, the other thing is that with Slavin out, Nikishin is getting penalty kill time, and the Canes were perfect on the penalty kill last night. So that's another testament to his extremely big toolkit. He's not even close to scratching the surface of what he can do on the ice, and this is all happening while he's adapting to a completely different game and, the language barrier and everything else. I think he's going to be a star. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Katie, what about your thoughts on that pair?
I love them. I love what Erin mentioned as far as Ghost playing on his offside. But if you have noticed, when they are in the offensive zone, sometimes they switch up.
They switch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that allows Nikishin to get open for that big booming slap shot of his. And he has tickled 99 miles an hour on one of his shots. So I can't wait until he finally breaks that 100 mark. That will be very, very exciting. But I love the fact that they have that dynamic, because it forces defenses to have to keep track of both of them. Gostisbehere is more of the, let's see, smooth operator, shall we say, where he's kind of floating around and he's using his skating and his stick handling and his passing to create opportunities. And Nikishin's just out there ripping it and being the strong man on that pair. And they complement each other so well in the O zone, and they've been doing really well in the defensive zone too. They're not fancy. They just play the puck as they need to. They make sure to get it out, get it to safety, nothing too risky, nothing too crazy, just good, solid hockey 101 approach to the D zone. And so far it has worked great for them. And other than that, everyone has been posting, for good reason, that hit that Nikishin landed last night after Gostisbehere got tripped. And that's just a thing of beauty. We're going to have many, many more highlights like that. And I am here for it.
Yes. The Canes have needed that element in their lineup for a long time. It is one of the reasons I think they've struggled so much in the playoffs against a team like the Florida Panthers that is going to beat you up and take your lunch money all over the ice. So they need that. They desperately do. And I think that one of the things I really liked about that hit that Katie mentioned is the aftermath, when every Cane on the ice rushed to make sure that there wasn't going to be any retaliation against Nikishin for that, because that's another thing that has been lacking in the past, their ability to, come in and stand up for each other. And it's necessary. It's not something that, you don't want to instigate fights all over the place, but you can't let your teammates handle that sort of thing on their own if they're, being unjustly challenged for what was a really clean hit. So
I tend to feel the same way on most of this. I think, with Nikishin, again, they're sheltering his minutes. He's sitting around, 14, 15 minutes a game. But they throw him out near the end of the game last night. They're putting him out on penalty kill situations. They're bringing him along nice and slow. And I think that's a smart thing to do. And I believe that, as he gets more ice time, we're going to see more of that talent that he has. He makes plays that folks just dream about, and he does it on a regular basis. The other thing that I've noticed with him is he's definitely got the green light to go deep into the zone in the offensive side. I've seen it many times, way in the offensive zone. And he knows that, there are other forwards that are going to come back, that the Canes are one of the best teams for covering when the blue heads into the offensive zone. And the other thing I've noticed when he and Gostisbehere have gotten into some defensive challenges in their own zone, there's some heavy lifting being done by the forwards too. They're coming in and helping out. The centers are tracking back. They're trying to pick up the puck, get out of there in a hurry, and so on. So lots of good things there. We're going to see some bumps in the road for sure. But boy, the first 3 games are a good indication of some exciting stuff ahead for sure. Okay, so let's move to the forward side, and there's some interesting stories up front for sure. We were all kind of wondering, how is Taylor Hall going to kick off the season? We talked a little bit about it. He was on the 4th line. How's he going to be? What can we expect from Hall? He's getting older. He's had some injury problems. I don't know about you, but it looks like this is a re-energized Taylor Hall. He looks like Taylor Hall from 4 or 5 or 6 years ago. He's flying out there. He's making smart plays. He's constantly in on something. And when he was patrolling that spot on the fourth line, he and Eric Robinson in particular really, really stood out to me. So, Erin, you want to pick this up on those two guys?
Sure. I think that it's interesting because this is a very different construction of a fourth line than you'll see on most teams, and it's a different construction than the Canes have seen in the past. Right. The idea here, I think, is pretty simple. The Canes have always struggled. Again, we're looking at the postseason. They've struggled in the postseason to put up enough offense to get past some of these heavy offensive teams. Right. And they need scoring, from everybody. They can't really have a fourth line that is just there to, hit people and all that sort of thing. They need to back away from that traditional fourth line, which, they seem to have been comfortable doing at times, and get some offense from their fourth, because the matchups can be arranged, especially at home, to give them favorable matchups. They can, if you've got guys like Hall who can score from anywhere, you want that from them. And then Eric Robinson was complimented by Rod Brind'Amour in today's media presser for his speed. And I think that has been the key. Robinson may not be the most gifted offensive player on the team in terms of, the fancy moves or the soft hands or something, but he's, by just virtue of being able to get to the net quickly, drive that far post, and be in a position for a tap-in or a deflection, he can work very well with Taylor Hall, and they've already done that, on a couple of occasions. So the two of them are very fast. They're very agile getting into the offensive zone. They've taken advantage of some breakaways, and they're the first winger duo, I would say, on the Canes that when I see them get a breakaway, I think there's actually a chance, because we know that as dearly as we love some of our great players, even Sebastian Aho, we love Aho, but, when Aho streaks in on a breakaway, there's probably a 50-50 chance. And then, so often those opportunities fall to Jordan Martinook or Jordan Stahl, and we know there again, they can sometimes surprise us with a great goal, but more often than not, you see that breakaway and you kind of sit back and go, oh, this will be cute, because it's going to sail over the net or go wide, and that's, I think, having a pair that's actually a threat on breakaways is really, really important for the Canes, because they are beginning, with the defensive players they have, they're beginning to get those set up. And we saw that, we already mentioned Mike Reilly setting up Eric Robinson on that breakaway, but we've seen it from Miller and even Nikishin, where they're finding the forwards and helping them fly the zone. And that's important. You got to have that.
Yeah, and a couple of things. Now, Robinson, interestingly enough, he's got 2 goals and 1 assist. He's had a number of opportunities of breakaways and other chances in this short season, but he's only averaging 9 minutes, just over 9 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, one of the things that they were talking about last night is Rod Brind'Amour was saying, I've got to get more ice time for Robinson and Hall. Those guys are definitely earning the right. So he's getting the message, and I think you're going to see hopefully a little bit more time for Robinson. And I think, we talked a lot about this when he re-upped and did his 4-year deal. He's a guy that's just scratching the surface. I mean, he is getting confidence now, and that's one of the things that, with these players, once they get a little bit of confidence, you be very surprised with what comes out the other side. It's amazing. And I think he's starting to get that. And you can see him. He's more comfortable with the puck. He's definitely heading towards the net. He's getting into the dirty areas. He's doing all the heavy lifting. So I'm really excited about him. Now, Hall has now slipped on to another line. And I think, Katie, I'd like you to talk a little bit about this second group now with Logan Stankhoven, of course, at center ice, and we've got Jackson Blake on the right. What do you see with those guys, and now Taylor Hall in there as well?
Well, if there was a stat that we could create that was called work ethic per 60, I think Hall, Stankhoven, and Blake would be the top line in the league in that particular stat. They just work their tails off. All 3 of them are constantly moving and motoring. One of the ways that work ethic per 60 would be measured would be in all of the penalties, especially that Jackson Blake has drawn. Right. Just because he's driving to the middle, moving feet, crossing through the zone. Yeah. they are working really hard. And we saw that beautiful goal that Gostisbehere scored against San Jose.
That's gorgeous.
But what started the whole thing, he didn't get a point on it, but what started the whole thing was Blake playing the body along the walls in the defensive zone to get it out.
Yes.
And then that creates the rush up the ice with Hall and Stankhoven, who finally finds Ghost streaking in through the middle for that goal. And that's about as easy a goal as Ghost is ever going to have, because the speed and the work ethic of the forwards pulled the defense and pulled the goalie to where he had an open net to shoot at. It was a wonderful goal. But that is just the bread and butter of that line. And if they are able to keep up that energy and that work ethic and that motor and that determination, they are going to be so successful this season. Now, they still need to work a little bit. I think they have some defensive details that can be cleaned up a bit. Stankhoven still needs to get stronger in the face-off dot. So it is not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but it is, for 3 games in a very good place right now.
Well, and we heard that, Logan Stankhoven was saying, hey, what I really want to do is improve my defensive game and the face-off side of my game as well. So he put those as a priority and said, the offense will take care of itself. And I kind of see that. He's sitting at, I think, just under 47% in the face-off dot. So that's a little bit light, but he's getting help from some great ones. I guess both Jordan Stahl and Rod are spending a lot of time with him. So it doesn't get better than that. So those 2 guys, I'm sure, will get him going. But I think the other thing you see with Stankhoven in particular, driving this line, is that they're really a north-south line. They like to get the puck and head out and go, and I really like that. They definitely are getting all kinds of opportunities. Jackson Blake, he's leading the team in shots. He's had 15 shots already. So this guy is firing the puck every time he gets it. He had a beautiful goal. And he again, looking to go to the next level this year. And so many folks are thinking, he could definitely add a lot more points this year as well. So
his confidence is so high right now. It is so high. His confidence out there.
That shot last night,
he's motoring. It's beautiful.
Well, he looks like a different player from, when he started last year, of course, and he finished the year strong, but he's now feeling like he belongs, and now it's, can I get to the next level? Stankhoven, to me, is a bit of a revelation. I think he's got talent that's, I don't know how high his ceiling is going to be, because he is such a fine player, and he's learning, some of the nuances of being a full-time center. And once he gets that, offensively, we see what he does all the time. He's always in on the play, making something happen. And boy, he's going to get his points as well. And one of the things that I think is a byproduct of these 2 guys, particularly Hall and Stankhoven, is that that second power play unit, and I guess Blake's on there as well, has been showing a lot. And, remember that Hall last year, we've talked about this in the past, Hall last year seemed to really connect with Stankhoven. Those guys got some chemistry, and I'm sure, as Rod was watching the game the other night, I thought, I'll just put those guys back together. Let's see what happens. So great stuff with that line. And you talk about the whole question of going up against the Panthers. And one thing the Panthers did is they threw 4 lines that could hurt you. Like, they could score, they could make things happen. Even their 4th line was a tough line to play against. And I think, the Canes, if Aho's line gets shut down, previously, we're hoping that maybe Jordan Stahl's line would chip in a goal or 2 and you might get something else. I think the intent this year was to run 4 lines that could really have an impact. And so far, that strategy by Tulsky is paying off. So one of the guys that we talked about before that, we kind of, I don't know, we're so excited with him. I wasn't. I just wondered where he fit in all of this year, was Will Carrier. But I got to tell you, so far so good. Katie, what do you think about with Will?
Oh, I've loved his game so far. He is just in everybody's face. It doesn't matter, D zone, neutral zone, offensive zone. I actually picked him yesterday in one of the X posts to be the first goal scorer halfway through the first. I was this close on my prediction. He was the second goal scorer halfway through the second, and it was a rebound goal, because I think that's going to be where his bread and butter is he's not a pure goal scorer, but if the people that he is on the ice with, whether it's Stahl, Martinook, the defenders, like he was cleaning up that Nikishin rebound on the chance that he created, he is going to have a nose for the puck, and he is not going to be afraid to get into the crease and to be banging away at the loose pucks that he was going to have just a ton of opportunity to do so. So it was very heartening to see him get that, because it felt like he was so close those first two games at cashing in, and he got rewarded last night against San Jose, and that was fantastic.
Erin?
Well, I think you're right there. And I think that, like you said, his bread and butter is going to be those kinds of goals. He's never been a huge goal scorer, and he doesn't have to be if he keeps playing like he is right now. So it's great to see him get one, But I think where we were missing some of that last year is that he was dealing with injury. And, when you come back from that, it's just not. And he still managed to be impactful in the playoffs, just not enough. Yeah. It wasn't enough. And that's, I think, that where the challenge is going to be to keep him healthy for a whole season. That has been a challenge in the past, so it may take a while for them to figure out how best to do that. Whether he needs to maybe one of the things I'm seeing from other teams with some of these kinds of players is that they are giving them practice days off, and the Canes practice like they play, they practice hard, they work hard at all their practices. It's you don't come away feeling like you just skated up and down the ice. It's practically like playing a game. And that is something that players that have left the Canes have commented on, sometimes not so favorably. But if it's going to be like that, it might actually be, as the season wears on, in an effort to keep Will Carrier, this version that we're seeing right now, it would be, I think, well within their range of good options to consider letting him skip practices whenever there's not anything particular for him to do, because you want to keep him healthy. You want this version of Will Carrier when you get to the playoffs. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the way it is, because he's definitely showing better than he did last year.
Yeah, and he had a 16-goal season 3 years ago with Vegas. And he's a guy that, when you watched him with Vegas and in the playoffs, he always was very impressive. He was that one of those guys that usually patrolled that spot in the fourth line, but you really liked what he did. He brought a heavy game. He'd chip in with the odd goal, and he made something happen. And I think, coming to a new team last year, never really got his mojo with the Canes. And I think this year he comes back fresh. He's feeling great. And he's got a very clear role alongside the two dads, if you want to call them that, both Stahl and Martinook. And I think as a line, they've been really, really effective. So, again, that's a line that all three of those guys, you just want to you want to take it easier with them, because they're going to be critical as we head into the playoffs, and we don't want them, too tired. That's for sure. So, the line that we haven't talked about, kind of interesting, is the top line of the Canes. And we had a lot of expectation for the line of Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and, of course, Nikolai Ehlers. Still finding their way. Katie?
Yeah, I think it's just going to come with highly skilled players. It just takes a little bit of time, and their puck possession numbers are great. Their underlying numbers look fantastic. They are creating and generating a lot of chances. Now they're giving up more than you would want to see from a Sebastian Aho led line, especially with Jarvis out there. So I'm more interested in them tightening stuff up on their defensive details, because I think the offense is just going to naturally proceed. I'd like to have seen Aho score by now. I think Ehlers taking some time makes sense, but at least Jarvis has produced although none of his 3 goals has been on 5-on-5. It's been in other circumstances, but he's feeling it. He's ripping the puck, so he's getting those touches, and I think it's just a matter of time. It will come.
Erin?
I thought watching them last night, they frequently looked like the most dangerous line on the ice. They're just not 100% clicking yet. Yeah. And I think that we will see them do that over the course of this road trip as things go on. It's not going to be that much longer before Nikolai Ehlers gets his first as a Cane. I don't think, he came pretty close last night on a couple of occasions. Aho's definitely shooting the puck more. I think you said he has had 7 shots so far, and that's for Aho. I mean, over 3 games, that's maybe not a lot, but for Aho, that's still a lot. It is for someone who passes as instinctively as Sebastian Aho does. Taking 7 shots on the net over 3 games is not something we can complain about. He's not going to be your 7-shot a game guy, and Jarvis has been actually taking that role. He's been shooting a lot too. So I think that it's just a matter of, when I was watching Ehlers entering the offensive zone last night, there were a couple of times when he would come in and he would start circling in a way that's very reminiscent of Martinez. And I think that once they get that in sync to where they know how his speed is creating that rhythm for them, kind of like how Ghost was on the 3-on-3 the other night. When they see Ehlers doing those same things and they can position themselves to take advantage of the fact that he is confusing the defenders and they don't know where he's going to end up or what he's going to do, if he's shooting, if he's passing. They don't really know because he's coming in so fast. So just getting all that rhythm together. I think that Ehlers spoke of it as chemistry, but I really think it's just the rhythm of playing with a player who can move that fast and control the puck as long as he does. So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure they're getting their opportunities. I think Jarvis looks like he's going to have a breakout season this year. I think he's definitely going to be right there in terms of goal scoring. I think he can hit 40 goals this year. So he's definitely in the game. Again, I think they got to find a way to start scoring 5-on-5. And one of the luxuries the Canes have had, of course, is that they've had lots of other people doing that. So they've got to find their way, and you can't expect the other guys to keep scoring at the rate they're scoring at. So I think definitely the top line's got to start to find their way, and we'll keep an eye on that. So you had some interesting stuff too, Katie. You had a Hockey Viz chart that you were kind of playing with. What did you see on that chart?
Well, that particular chart that I sent you showed the power play shots taken comparative to league average. And I know that's been one of the gripes that's been going on right now, is that with all of the scoring the Canes have done, it doesn't seem like their power play is producing like they need it to, tailing back to last year. But what that particular chart shows is they are generating a lot of chances. And so just like we talked about with the top line just needing to get that familiarity together 5-on-5, they're also needing to build that familiarity together with the power play. And as they tweak and adjust and keep the pressure on and keep those good habits that they've had so far, the chances will come. And it's been nice having Ehlers. The zone entries have not been nearly the difficulty that they were in the past. It is getting better. And so I would not be surprised within the next couple of games if the power play starts to click and starts to produce a little bit more as they get more comfortable with each other and get more comfortable with the system as it runs now.
Yeah, you talk about zone entries. We see frequently Aho and Jarvis will bring the puck up the ice and they'll get it into the O zone. Occasionally it'll be Ehlers as well. And I think on the other power play unit, of course, Logan Stankhoven has been phenomenal, bringing the puck up and getting it into the zone. So I think that has not been the problem. They're just not able to finish off. Now, one of the things that I wanted to mention as we talk about this is that one of the guys on the power play and on that number 1 power play is Andrei Svechnikov. Now, Svechnikov was kind of demoted to the 4th line, and we talked about Taylor Hall slipping up beside Logan Stankhoven. And the other guy that I thought we'd talk about along with Svechnikov is Kokoniemi, Jesperi Kokoniemi. These two guys are kind of, they're just not there yet. So what are we thinking about with Svechnikov and Kokoniemi? Katie, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I'll start with Svech because I think Erin has a few opinions as far as KK is concerned. I think, I referenced before that second line in their work rate per 60. And I think that Svech hasn't just gotten his motor up to that same level as the others yet. If he can find a way to maximize all the other details, whether it's his play off the puck or the play with the puck in the dirty areas, I think he'll come around and he'll get there. And it could be that playing on that fourth line or third scoring line, whatever you want to call it, could end up being good for him because it will help him simplify his game a little bit more and focus on just doing the things that he knows how to do and can do well and not have to try and press too much and overthink things. Because when Svech gets in his own head is where he gets himself crossed up. And then when he gets crossed up, he just limits himself as an option, either to distribute to his teammates or to be a target when his teammates have the puck. So we'll see how it goes. I hope this doesn't turn into a long-term situation with him. We really need him to be a factor on the team because he possesses a physical presence as well as a skill set that nobody else on the team does. And the Stahl, the Martinic, the Carrier, they have the physical presence but not the skill. A lot of all the other forwards have a lot of skill, but they don't have his size and physical presence. It really feels like he's kind of the pivot point that if he can get going, it's going to really jumpstart the Canes offense to being even better than they've already been.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Absolutely.
Kotkaniemi, Erin?
Well, I have spent a few minutes here and there the last couple of days talking about Kotkaniemi on Twitter. And I think people who've seen those posts probably know where what I'm thinking right now. But I think that his first two games, the first game was good. The second game was not as good. The first game was, first game he was definitely a factor in one of the goals and was, certainly not shying away from the play. He had a hit. He had some other things too. Second game, again, against the Flyers, a little bit less involved than you want to see. Face-offs have been a little bit of a struggle, but uncharacteristically so. And I don't think that that's a long-term concern for the Canes because he's never been, below 51, almost 52% since he's joined the Hurricanes. So, knowing that he had that eye injury before in the preseason, you just think maybe that's a factor and he'll probably get back up to speed. But the reality is that when you choose to healthy scratch a player who is making almost $5 million a year and you do it 2 games into the season when there hasn't been any really egregious problems. There hasn't been anything that you would say, well, he has to be out of the lineup because he did this or he did that. No. You're looking at a player who is a soon-to-be ex-Cane, in my opinion. Yes. I think that Rod Brind'Amour has made his decision about who he wants in the lineup, and I think that Kotkaniemi is not part of that decision. And, I mean, I know that for the Canes, this is an embarrassing situation. They overpaid by a tremendous amount of money to acquire the player. They signed him to a long-term deal, and they can't seem to figure out what to do with him, because he's not a second-line center, and that's not his fault. That's a lot of people say, oh, he should have stepped up and he should have done this. You can't make yourself play. I mean, if every player on the team could suddenly decide they want to be a first liner, then then that would be great, wouldn't it? But they can't. You can't do that. You can't just decide you're going to be better than you are. So he wasn't fit for that role. And the third line center role is going to be occupied by Jordan Stahl for at least the next 2 seasons because he's signed for those. And I think it's realistic to expect 1, 2, maybe even 3 more. So depending on how well he stays in condition and whether he's willing as he ages to take a lower role. All of that means there's no place for Jesperi Kotkaniemi on the Canes. And it really has been that way for the last couple of seasons. They just didn't have anyone to take the 2C role. Now that they do, now that Logan Stankhoven is looking so good in that role, they really need to trade him as of yesterday. And putting him in the press box for 1 game, possibly 2, we don't know yet if he's going to play against the Ducks, but I highly doubt it. It's just Rod Brind'Amour kind of forcing Eric Tulsky's hand and saying, this is not a player I want on my team. So there are a number of teams in the league that really need a third-line center. There are plenty that would be willing to take Kotkaniemi even at his current contract. It is not an overpay. Look at how much Christian Dvorak is making with the Flyers. And Dvorak is no more offensively minded and has no more skill set. Even his faceoffs, which have been at times elite, have gone up and down over the last few years. So, and I've seen that in Montreal. So, you look at the comparable, you say, okay, if Dvorak can make $5.1 million, then there's really no reason to shy away from a team that wants a third line center picking up Kotkaniemi. So I think a trade needs to happen. And if they can't get it done quickly, then they need to revisit what they're doing, because you can't sit a player who's making that much money in your press box just for an unlimited amount of time, especially when there isn't a specific reason as far as his play. He was not bad in those first 2 games. He was not doing anything that he shouldn't be doing. There was nothing that he specifically caused, alone in any way. I think he was only on the ice for 1 goal against, and that was a breakdown in communication that involved Kotkaniemi, Robinson, and Nikishin. So all 3 of them trying to get the puck out along the wall, and nobody really knew who was supposed to be standing back in case it popped out the wrong way. So those kind of moments are going to happen early in the season. So, I just look at this and say, this has nothing to do with how the player is performing. This has to do with the decision that has already been made. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing where he goes, and that's fine. But the Canes don't need him, and it's high time they moved on.
Katie, are you of the same mind?
Yeah, I think so. If you're not going to play him, what's the point? They've got other guys that can step in if needed, and if somebody gets hurt, they've got plenty of options down in Chicago as well that are primed and ready to contribute. So, for the good of KK as much as anything else, I hope that they find a good fit for him. Hopefully they don't move on just to move on, but they find a place for him that will actually be good for him.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Chicago. One of the guys that has impressed us every time he's been up has been Justin Robidas. And boy, he looks like he's the real deal as well. So I'm sure that if they make a move and don't bring in another centerman, that they've got some thoughts that Justin could be a help later on. But the other thing that is a bit of a telling point, we saw some of the comments that Rod Brindamore has been making. He made after the game last night, and he's made some comments today about Mark Jankowski. He loves Janks. He likes his face-off acumen. He likes his penalty kill work. He obviously likes his 5-on-5 work as well. So he's definitely endeared himself to Rod, and that further puts the nail in the coffin, as you'd say, Erin, that Kotkaniemi's probably got very few days left with the Hurricanes. So we'll have to see how it plays out, but not a great situation. I think we were all kind of hopeful that Jesperi would find his way and start to be a key contributor to the Canes, because he does have a lot of talent, and in the right situation, I think he can contribute a lot. So
quite frankly, he has too much talent to be playing 10 minutes a night on the fourth line. And ultimately, even if he's tried to step up and change things and be the guy, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're playing 10 minutes a night, and you're playing a role that a guy that makes, $1.5 million or $2 million can play. So there's no point for the player's sake in dragging this out any longer. There's no point. And that's where, this is also a player who I am fairly sure has hopes of making Team Finland's Olympic roster, at least as a backup. I don't think he has high hopes of maybe making the actual team, but they're going to have some extras in case of injury. He's not going to get any looks at all if he's sitting in a press box, and he's not going to get very many if he's playing 10 minutes a night on the fourth line. So he needs to be moved for his good, and the team needs to move on from a situation that frankly has become embarrassing for them. Yeah. This is a failure. They failed with the offer sheet. And they need to, just like they failed when they took on Mikko Rantanen without signing him, making sure he would sign long-term. You have to get out of those situations. And the fact that it's dragged on really 2 more years than it needed to at this point, you have to wonder why. What was the reason that they didn't move on last season when they really should have? So whatever the case might be, it'll happen now, and it's overdue.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And I think, it's a good point on the Team Finland, because we've talked about that before, is that could have been the ultimate kind of encouragement for him to really, and a catalyst for him to really go and play his best, because, he had an opportunity to be one of those extras on that squad for sure. Look, the decision that was made to bring him in at the time, he was 3rd overall the year that he was drafted, right behind Svechnikov. So this guy was highly rated. Sure, he was drafted higher than just about anybody would have picked him, but but still a player that over time he had some attributes that you definitely love in a centerman. He's a big guy. Boy, his first few years with Montreal, he showed a lot. So, I understand the decision to bring him in. I don't think that was a bad decision. It just didn't work out. And same thing with Rantanen. You take a swing, sometimes it just doesn't work out for you. And I think you're on the right side of this, though, is that what you got to do is find an elegant way out. They certainly did that with Mikko Rantanen, and I think did an outstanding job of turning what could have been a very difficult situation into something that worked out very, very well for the Canes. They have not done that with Jesperi Kotkaniemi yet, and maybe that's what the problem is. They haven't found the deal that they want. And we're just going to have to wait and see what that looks like. But I think at this stage, a couple of draft picks would be just fine. In any case,
the Canes are low on draft capital, so yeah. Yeah,
exactly. We're a little bit light next year, so we could definitely fill the cupboard. In any case, lots going on with the team right now. We look at, we've talked about the forwards, the defensive core. Just wanted to mention one thing in the goaltending side as we finish this part of the podcast. Brandon Bussi, he's interesting. Didn't know a lot about Brandon when he came over. He had been very highly rated with the Boston Bruins and in their chain. He was outstanding his rookie year, and he was on the all-rookie team. He played in the All-Star games. The Canes, heading into last season, said this about Bussi, and they said, he needs to be in the conversation as among the top young netminders outside of the NHL. His strong play with Providence is the reason why Boston felt so comfortable moving Linus Ullmark. The big 6'4" Bussi has a penchant for the highlight reel save. His play tracking ability and increased movement are terrific. So this guy, incredibly highly rated. We didn't know much about him, of course, because we had no reason to pay attention to him. I was concerned when we lost Caden Primo, but maybe it's going to work out great for us. Erin, any thoughts on Brandon Bussi?
I liked watching him play last night. I thought that he was, you always kind of brace yourself for those first couple of shots against when it's a brand new goaltender on the ice, and he just was very calm and made the saves with no trouble at all. Considering how many breakaways the Canes gave up, especially in the first period, he was very solid in tracking all of those and making sure that those pucks did not go in the net. And that was really important because you start out down a few and you don't get any maybe on your end, and then all of a sudden it's a very different game. So he kept them in it until they got settled down and figured out what they were doing defensively. And you can't overrate that. He's, I think, about a year older than Primo, Caden Primo, I think, something like that. Something like that. So we're talking about somebody who's very much in the same group of as far as how old they are and their potential to continue to develop. I think in a perfect world, the Canes would have wanted to keep Primo, but
yes,
they were not. You can't always control that at the beginning of the season when goalies are being placed on waivers. So they made a calculated move. There were a lot of goaltenders on waivers the day that they lost Primo to the Maple Leafs. So they did their best, but it didn't work out. And Primo did, by the way, get his first win last night, also with the Maple Leafs. So they both have a win. I mean, it wasn't his first NHL win, but it was his first win as a member of the Maple Leafs. So I thought I'd mention that. But yeah. If the Canes could get Primo back, if the Leafs end up getting their injured guys back up into the lineup, they may decide that they want to bring him back in. But at the meantime, Bussi looks great, and I don't see any reason why he shouldn't continue to be their third goaltender, because right now with Kochetkov's injury and not knowing the timeline on that again, they definitely need somebody there backing up Freddie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, don't want to go crazy with one game against one of the NHL's worst teams.
True.
This is as much a Canes issue as a Bussi issue, but you give up all of those grade A chances against to Vegas or Colorado or Dallas, and more than one of them is going to end up in the back of the net.
Yeah.
So they, got to temper expectations a little bit, but for the task he was given for his first game, I mean, phenomenal start. Glad to see that his parents were in the stands. I always love those stories when they cut to the parents and see the parents all smiling. I think his fiance was there too. And those are always really heartwarming stories. And when you hear the whole backstory of how he was on the road to Charlotte to check in with the AHL team for the Panthers and got the phone call and had to reroute to Raleigh, and and you get pictures of him in a stall and it says "new guy" up above his head instead of having his name on the placard. I mean, it makes for a very charming story, and I'm glad that the win was added to all of the fun narrative behind him. And I hope he gets at least one more chance to man the net before Kochetkov returns. But the one nice thing is that seeing him be that solid means that there's not going to be a rush trying to get Piotr back, that they know that they can take their time and they can really let him get to 100%, that you don't have to try to bring him back at 85 or 90% health, that can really trust that they can give Kochetkov all the time he needs to not re-aggravate it. Because he played in that one preseason game and he had been injured before, played in the preseason game and apparently re-aggravated whatever the problem was to begin with. So having Bussy really will let them say, okay, we don't have to rush Kochetkov back again. Let's get him 100% and let Bussy take care of business behind Freddie for the time being.
Yeah, and I mean, as I mentioned, Bussy extremely highly regarded. And the other thing we heard is that Paul Schoenfelder was very interested in Brandon Bussy. And so definitely was influential in the decision to pick him up, and knew a little bit about him and felt he was a great young goaltender as well. So I think this is great. Again, one of the rare goalies that catches with his right hand. So that was kind of fun.
That's so fun to watch. Yeah.
Kind of fun to watch that. He caught a couple that might have been challenging if he was using his left hand in that situation to catch it. In any case, that's going to help. We've got to count on Freddie, of course, through this tough road trip, and that leads us into our final thoughts. As the Canes continue this long, grueling road trip, what should we be watching for with the Canes? And also, are there any developing stories? And we kind of picked one of them up, or maybe a couple, that we got to keep an eye on over this next period of games. What are we thinking as they continue this incredible road trip out west? Katie?
It's just going to get harder from here, right? You've got Anaheim and then Los Angeles and then the gauntlet that is Vegas, Colorado, and Dallas. And so for me, the storyline I'm interested in is, can they maintain the high level of scoring from the top to the bottom, getting contributions from lots of places? Because if those teams can turn the Canes one-dimensional, it's going to be a rough remainder of the road trip. But if the Canes can stay dynamic and they can have their D play solid, don't need out-of-the-world Jacob Slavin level stuff, just good lunch pail defense, I think they have a really good shot at coming home with a winning road trip. Yeah. And that would be fantastic to see, because I think almost every Canes fan looked at this schedule and went, ooh, just please come home 500 and we'll be happy. Yes. And they are poised where they could come home a lot better than that. But they're going to need to continue the good habits that they have started over these first 3 games of the season.
And are there any players or stories that you're going to be watching closely as they continue this road trip?
I think there's something about the way that Carrier has been playing, and I want to see how that Stahl, Martin-Luc, Carrier line continues to work together, because we're talking about first line scoring, second line scoring, contributions from the fourth line, as though Stahl's line is just kind of and I mean, they have been in the past. I always joke that Stahl and Martinook have cement in their mitts. It's what makes them so hard to play against, but it also what makes them look like they're, confused on what to do with the puck when it's time to shoot it. But the energy that Carrier is just such an interesting X factor on that line, and the way that he crashes the net and works in the corners, that if he can continue that level, I love I'm very intrigued in that storyline of that kind of almost forgotten stall line when it comes to the offensive side of things. We're never going to take for granted their defensive work and the penalty killing that Stahl and Martinick do, but that Carrier X factor on that line and how it's going to impact the team moving forward.
Well, and how many breakaways has Martinick had? He's had his share.
Again, cement in the midst on that sort of thing.
Well, don't forget, he had his
every now
best
and
year
again, they
last year.
surprise you.
Yeah, he had his best year last year. So, if he can score another, if he gets 14 goals, 15 goals this year, that's fantastic. So, anyway, Erin, what are you thinking as the Canes continue this grueling road trip?
I think that one of the things that's going to make this road trip really, really challenging, and we've already touched on it a little bit, typically when they've gone west, they have finished against Anaheim, against the Sharks. They're starting against those teams, and that is great from a continued team development cohesion level, because they're still trying to come together as a team with some new guys on, and that's really important to them to have this time. But that means that when they are tired and living out of a suitcase for over a week already, that's when they face those last three monster teams. I think that, there's other things that are a factor in that. With Vegas, it's the fact that, just the way they play and their physicality. I think with Colorado, we know from Katie that it's the speed that team is capable of, but also at times, and this might come back to someone like Carrier, I don't really know, but altitude can be a factor for the teams that aren't used to it. And, it's often the bigger, heavier guys that feel that the most. So that's going to be something where they're going to have to be really careful about managing those minutes and making sure that they don't have exhausted guys trying to combat, McKinnon out there or Makar. And then the final trip, of course, is the Dallas trip. I'm not able to attend that game. I thought about it, but it's not going to work. But the Dallas game is going to be the Mikko Rantanen, the first time that they face Rantanen after this trade. There's a lot of narratives being built around that. I don't think the average Canes fan is really paying that much attention, but there is a group of season ticket holders who will be at that game. It is their season ticket travel game this year. So that's going to be interesting. And I think that game coming at the time when they are at their most exhausted is going to be a little bit of a struggle. So the other narrative, the other developing story, I think that we need to keep an eye on is that, and this is league-wide, there have been a number of unexpectedly impactful and very serious injuries to key players in these early games. You don't typically see that because teams aren't always going that pedal to the metal against each other. They're not always doing the heavy hitting and the heavy, all of that heavy physical stuff that leads to some of these injuries. But that's not the case this year. There have been a number of people that are out for significant amounts of time. There were more reports today of players being out for significant. Vincent Trocheck will be out for several. He's on LTIR now, and I mean, there's just you keep seeing these injury reports, and I feel like that's something the Canes are going to have to be careful about because they have some players that have had a history of being a little bit banged up and maybe not out of the lineup, but that really affects their play. So just keeping everybody healthy is going to be a really big concern, I think, over these next 5 games. Yeah,
and following the story of what's going to happen with Kotkaniemi and what are we going to see with Svechnikov, those two guys could be helpful in an injury situation for sure.
Sure.
The Canes have lots of depth, and they're in a position where we hope that Jacob Slavin is able to rejoin the team. And it'd be great if Pyotr Kochetkov could too. Both of those guys could add something to the mix for sure. But right now, Freddie's the man. He's going to be carrying the load and goal, and it's going to be by committee. They're going to have to work hard to make this happen, and of course the D-corps. They're all going to have to come through. It's going to be a challenge, but I think a good situation too in this regard is that. Some of these players are going to get thrown into situations that they might have faced later on in the season. I don't think that's bad. Giving them some extra minutes, some tough minutes. We even saw Gostisbehere killing penalties as well. So we've seen a little bit of everything. And I think that's a good situation that the Canes can throw these guys out there. they're making it happen, and so far the success speaks for itself. But yeah, lots coming. We've got a big game against Anaheim tomorrow night. A lot of folks talking about Anaheim. They think that this team in Anaheim has a shot at the playoffs. I'm not sure they're there yet. Their defensive core to me is just not quite as good. They do have a lot of young, very talented players, but I think the Canes can top them, and I think it's a critical game for them. They must win that game as they did and had to with, of course, San Jose. So we'll be looking forward to that tomorrow night, and we'll check it out. For those of you who've been watching or listening, as always, we thank you very much for spending time with us. If you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have comments or questions, we'd be happy to respond just as soon as you put those in the section down below. And of course, if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons, and we'll make sure that you're made aware of any future episodes as soon as they're available. Once again, we thank you very much for spending time with us, and we look forward to getting together with you real soon, right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need Storm Tracker.